they will start with the teaching of Amarakosha, this Namalinganushasana. So this Namalinganushasana, as the name itself suggests, it contains of Nama and the Linga. So this treatise gives a complete clue about the nouns and the genders, because to learn the gender is very, very important in Sanskrit language, because the gender concept is somewhat unique to Sanskrit. Unlike other languages, where we decide the gender of a particular word by its meaning, right? See, for example, in Tamil, if you take a word like a Talaivan, since it conveys a hero, the gender of that word is Pullinga, masculine. If you take the word like Talaivi or Nayagi or the Tori, so all these words convey the meaning of a feminine form. So the gender is feminine gender. But such a principle is not followed in Sanskrit, that we all know. Here, irrespective of the meaning of the word, that particular word takes a gender depending upon its ending. I may quote an example. Say, for example, in Sanskrit, there are words like Daraha, Patni, and Kalatram. Or even may take the example of Bharya also. So, Daraha, Bharya, Kalatram. The meaning of all these words are wife. Okay, Daraha means wife. In fact, Kalidasa says in Kumara Sambhava, when Himavan introduces Mena to Saptarshis, he says, Yete vayam ami daraha kanyayam kulajivitam. He introduces his entire family. So he first introduces himself, Yete vayam, then ami daraha. Then he refers to Mena and says, Ami daraha. So this is my wife. So Daraha means wife. Similarly, Bharya. We know this term, very popular term, Bharya or Patni. Again, wife. And Kalatram. That is also a popular word, particularly when we have a son or daughter in the age of marriage in our house. We will start for the Jataka exchange, everything. So at that time, the astrologer, he will say Kalatra Dosham and all these things, right? So Kalatra Sthana should be very Shuddha. So Kalatra refers to wife. So all these words denote wife only. But if you look at the gender of these words, let us first take the example of Daraha. It is in Pullinga. The Daraha Shabda is Pullinga Shabda. Bharya or Patni or Jaya or in Strilinga. And the last word Kalatram, that is in Napumsaka. So here, irrespective of the meaning, the gender is assigned to a particular word depending upon its ending. So it is very, very important to notice the ending. But even then, there are a lot of chances where we can mistake the gender of a word from one to another. So that is why to get the thorough knowledge of the gender, we must study this Amarakosha written by Amarasingha. That is why in the initial stage itself, they will introduce Namalinganushasana. And considering the importance of this Amarakosha and Ashtadhyayi, there is a popular saying, Ashtadhyayi Jaganmata Amarakosho Jagatpita. So this study of grammar and the study of this lexicon is mandatory for all the students. It is just like a universal mother and universal father. There is no other option. Probably keeping this idea in his mind, Kalidasa has written his great Mahakavya, Raghuhamsa, in which he starts with the benedictory verse, where he mentions Vagartha viva samprukto Vagartha pratipattaye Jagatah pitaro vande Parvati Parameshwaro. So here he compares Parvati and Parameshwara to Vak and Artha. So this association of Vak and Artha is a constant, a continuous and a permanent union. We cannot separate the meaning from a word. Similarly, there cannot exist a word without meaning. So this association or the combination or the relation between a word and its sense is eternal, permanent. And through this, we can know Ashtadhyayi Jaganmata Vak and Artha Amarakosha. So we know the meaning and the sense right from the school days itself, where the study of Ashtadhyayi and Amarakosha is initiated in those days. Now let us move on to the Amarakosha and its structure. This Amarakosha contains 1608 verses, and majority of them are written in Anushtup meter, divided into 3 chapters. Each and every chapter is called a Kanda. So we have got Prathama Kanda, Dvitiya Kanda, and Tritiya Kanda. And what are the subject matters? If you see, the Prathama Kanda starts with the benedictory verse, then it explains about the principle, how to understand the work. Then straight away the glossing of the noun start. It starts with Swarga Vargaha. Each and every group is called Varga. So in Swarga Varga, we'll have all the words describing heaven, then all the words describing gods, then all the words for Sri Vishnu, all the words for Manmatha, all the words for his Ayudha, all the words for Mahalakshmi. Like that, it will go on. So first we have Swarga Varga, which represents the heaven, then Vyoma Varga, sky, Dig Vargaha, directions, Kala Vargaha, time, then Dhi Vargaha, something related to our intelligence, then Shabda Vargaha, sound, Natya Vargaha, drama, then Patala Bhogi Vargaha. So Patala Bhogi, there we get information regarding the nether world, serpents, all these things. Naraka Vargaha, about the hell, and Vari Vargaha, water and aquatic animals, everything. Then the second Kanda, Dvitiya Kanda, it offers nouns belonging to Bhumi Vargaha, about the earth, then Pura Vargaha, towns or cities, Shaila Vargaha, mountains, Vanaushadhi Vargaha, forest and medicine. Here we get a lot of information regarding the different plants which are used as herbs during the time of Amarasimha. Then Simhadi Varga, lions and other animals, Manushya Varga, mankind, then Brahma Varga. This talks about the society system, right? The priest tribe, Kshatriya Varga, military tribe, Vaishya Varga, business tribe, and Shudra Varga, mixed classes, or predominantly skilled laborers. Then the Tritiya Kanda, it is a very interesting Kanda, because here some of the Vargas are devoted to the adjectives. Sankirna Varga contains words which cannot be classified under any particular category, so it is called Sankirna, a miscellaneous category. Then this Nanartha Varga is very, very important. Nanartha Varga, it talks about various shades of meaning of a particular word. Okay, say for example, if you take the word Hari in Sanskrit, the important meaning, the predominant meaning will be Bhagavan Vishnu, right? Hari, Vishnu. But at the same time, it also means a lion, a monkey, a horse, like that. There are 14 meanings associated with the word Hari. So this is called an Anartha, a word having different shades of meaning. That is called polysems. Then we have got Avyaya Varga, and finally Lingadi Sangraha Varga, how to determine the gender, some rules, some exceptions, all these things are covered in that topic. So this is how the general arrangement of Amarakosha is in this manner. Okay. About the content of Amarakosha, exactly it contains around 11,580 words. So if you have the Kanda wise distribution of the words, in Prathama Kanda we have got 2,465 words. In Dvitiya Kanda we have 5,827 words. In Tritiya Kanda we have got 3,288 words. And we have predominantly 2 groups. So one is the first 2 Vargas, they talk about the synonyms. Okay, it completely gives idea about the synonyms, a series of synonyms belonging to different words. Say for example, you take the this sloka. Amara nirjara devaha tridasha vibudhasuraha suparvanas sumanasaha tridivesha divaukasaha. So here we can see all these words, Amaraha, Nirjaraha, Devaha, Tridashaha, Suraha, all these words, they are all the synonyms of Devas. Similarly, some other, one more verse, you take it as an example. Abhrammego varivaha, stanayitnurbalaha, dharadharo jaladharaha, taditvan varidombabhrute. So this verse gives various synonyms for the cloud. So such slokas, series of such nouns are called synonyms. And at the same time, we have also the nanartha varga, as I told you already. It contains different meaning of the word. It explains. See, for example, akashe tridive nakaha. When we have this word nakaha, it also refers to the sky as well as the heaven. Similarly, lokastu bhuvane jane. Similarly, the word lokaha, it carries the meaning of the world as well as the people. So such words are explained under the nanartha category. Now, we will come to this topic of Amarakosha, its application. Amarakosha is extensively used by the Vyakhyanakartas, the commentators. Before we getting into this topic, first we must understand what is a Vyakhyana, what is a commentary, and what is the need for that. See, previously, when the original text is written, let us say, for example, the works of Kalidasa. Let us take the example of Raghuvamsha. When Raghuvamsha was written by Kalidasa, at that time, whatever may be the date, there is a lot of dispute. Somebody says that he belongs to 1st BC, somebody says 1st AD, or 6th, they drag Kalidasa to 4th century Common Era, then till 6th century. Okay, whatever may be it. At that time, when Kalidasa composed his work, the readers, the people, or the listeners, they were able to understand the text without much explanation or without much aid. Their level of understanding, their level of maturity, their acquaintance with the language that is used in Raghuvamsha was so conducive, so easy, so familiar for them. So they were able to enjoy the poetry as soon as it was read to them, or as soon as they read the poetry. But during the course of time, what happens? The language is modified. It takes a different shape. So because of that, what happens? The meaning of particular words also change according to the time. Because of all these things, some new forms come into existence. And after some 300 or 400 years, what happens? The gap between the original text and the reader becomes larger. At this point, there arises the need for a commentary to understand the original work. But if we look the Sanskrit literature, for Raghuvamsha, the commentary of Mallinatha will be available, Sanjeevani. Then for the commentary of Mallinatha, another commentary would have been written. And for the third commentary, Hindi translation or English translation will be written, or sometimes Tamil translation will also be written. Only with the help of all these things, a reader will be able to understand the original text of Kalidasa. So that is that shows how far away we have moved from the original text. Okay, so this is the need for the commentary, and the commentary is called Vyakhyana, and the commentators are called Vyakhyanakartas. The Vyakhyanakartas, when they write the commentary for the work, they always go to Amarakosha for their help. Sometimes they will also resort to some other lexicons. I will come to that later. So this Amarakosha is a ready reckoner. Go to it anytime. Say, for example, we will analyze the first shloka of Raghuvamsha. Then we will be able to understand the application of Amarakosha. There, it's a very familiar shloka, you all know this. Here Kalidasa says Vagartha viva samprukto Vagartha pratipattaye Jagatah pitaro vande Parvati Parameshwarau. Here Mallinatha, he explains each and every term in the shloka. Vagartha viva, he explains Nitya Samasa there. Then Samprukto, Vagartha Pratipattaye, he again explains the Samasa in Vagartha Pratipattaye. Then Jagataha Pitarau, when he comes to the word Pitarau, he quotes from Amarakosha. This statement is I have taken from the commentary of Mallinatha. Mata Pitarau, Pitarau, Matara Pitarau, Prasu Janayitarau, Ityamaraha. So he quotes from Amarakosha to explain the meaning of the Pitarau. He could have easily said the meaning of Pitarau is Matacha Pitacha Pitarau. That's all. But what is the necessity for quoting Amarakosha? That is not to exhibit his knowledge, but to bring validity to his commentary. The later audience or reader or a scholar should not mistake that this is the interpretation given by Mallinatha. Actually, it is not his own interpretation, based on the pramanas, based on the evidences and proofs he already has. He is writing, he is interpreting the shloka. So that is why he is quoting Amarakosha. And he further writes, Etena Sharva Shivayoho Vaishishtyam Ishtartha Pradana Shaktihi Paramakarunikatvancha Suchyate. So why he should mention Mata Pitaro, Matara Pitaro, Prasu Janayitaro? Because if we simply say the word Pitarau, it is an Ekasesha Samasa. It is a unique form available in Sanskrit. It is just like parent in English. When we say parent, both the father and mother are included, right? It's a common gender. But in Pitaru, when Matacha, Pitacha, we make it a compound, there optionally we can drop the first word Mata. So by the Pitaru itself, Mata is also included there. That he could have easily explained, but in order to convey the meaning of the speciality, the unique combination of Shiva and Shakti, because they are not united in a regular manner, their union is inseparable. The union goes by a special name called Ardhanarishwara, which is quite unique. So in order to bring that emphasis, he quotes from Amara and says, Ishtartha Pradana Shaktihi. By quoting this Mata Pitarau, Matara Pitarau, only when Mata and Pita are brought into the context, we will be able to understand the Paramakarunikatva. Right? Only when the feminine effect is given or the feminine divinity is introduced, the feeling of Daya, Karuna, everything comes into context, right? So, Chasuchyate, these are all suggested through the word Mata Pitarau. So, this is one purpose which is served by the Amarakosha. Again, this Amarakosha helps the reader to enjoy the poetry at a greater level. Let me quote another example from the very same Raghumsha. There is another shloka called Mandah Kaviyashav Prarthi Gamishyam Yupahasyatam Pramshulabhe Pale Lobhat Udbahuriva Manaha. So here Kalidasa, with a lot of humility, lot of modesty, he says that in my attempt to compose a Kavya and Ramayana, definitely I'll be ridiculed, because where is the Surya Vamsha and where my limited knowledge, with my limited knowledge, I'm going to write about Ramayana. It is just like crossing the ocean with a small boat, like that he is telling. And in the next shloka, he says, in my attempt, Mandaha, a dull-witted person, Kavi Yashaf Prarthi, but aiming at the fame of the title Kavi. He is already a dull man, a stupid man. Okay, he can't even compose a single sentence. But when that dull person is trying to compose a poetry, definitely all the people will laugh at him, right? He will make a laughing stock of his own self. And his attempt will be like Pramshulabhe Palelobat Udbahuriva Vamanaha. And his attempt would be like a dwarf man trying to repeatedly jump and reach the fruit which is at the top of the tree, which he can never do, right? So this is the meaning. But if that reader is more keen to enjoy this verse in a greater level, the Amarakosha will help him. See, this word Mandaha, even though the popular meaning, the primary meaning is a dull person, and the meaning of the word Kavi is a poet. But the very same words have the capacity to give some more meanings. For example, Mandaha has another meaning which denotes Shanishcharaha or Shanishwara. Shanishwara Bhagavan, one of the planet, right? We are all very much afraid of Shani Bhagavan because his movement is very, very slow. If he enters into the Janma Kundali, he will continue there for 7.5 years. So that is why in Tamil we used to say Yadare Nattu Sani, right? Mandaha. Because of his slow movement, he is called Shanaihi Charati. Shanaihi Charati iti Shanaischaraha. And the word Kavi refers to Shukra. According to Jyotisha Shastra, the entry of Shani is a very bad thing. Only bad effects will come to that person. At the same time, if the person gets the Kavi, the entry of Shukra, a lot of good things will come to him. It is considered as a lucky or turning point in his career. Now, with this meaning, let us try to analyze the shloka. When Shaneshwara is trying to get the name and fame of Shukra, how is it possible? Because Shaneshwara will only give bad effects and Shukra will only give good effects. So naturally, Shaneshwara is jealousy of this Kavi, Shukra. And when Shani Dasha comes, people will be always afraid, they are depressed, they are demotivated. But when they get the Shukra Dasha, they will be rejoicing, they'll be happy, they will progress in their life. So because of that, if Shaneshwara is aiming at the fame of Shukra, is it possible? Gamishyami upahasyatam. So if Shaneshwara attempts like this, he will be ridiculed. Similarly, I will also be ridiculed. This is the another level of meaning which is possible for a reader when he takes Amarakosha at his stride. So that is another application of Amarakosha. Similarly, I will quote one more example from Kalidasa himself. This shloka is from the Shakuntala, a masterpiece drama by the great poet Kalidasa. In the 4th act, Kanva Maharshi is sending a message to Dushyanta Raja. Dushyanta is the Maharaja, Chakravarti, right? And Kanva Maharshi is sending a message. So in that shloka, Asman Sadhu Vichintya Samyamadhanan Uchai Kulam Chatmanaha, the shloka goes like. And there lies the speciality in the 3rd line of the shloka, where Kalidasa says, Samanya Pratipatti Purvakamiyam Dareshu Drishyaha Tvaya. There he gives an clue, a hint to the king that Shakuntala should not be disregarded. You should not mistake Shakuntala to be a girl who is born and brought up in the forest. You have to treat her equally. Samanya Pratipatti Purvakam. Iyam refers to Shakuntala. Dareshu Drishya. You have a lot of wives in your harem because Bahuvallabha Rajanaha. Bahuvallabhaha. In those days, polygamy is accepted practice for kings. So you have a number of wives in your harem, but the same kind of treatment should be given to Shakuntala also. You should not be partial with Shakuntala. You should not try to disregard her. This is the meaning of this statement. But here again, the Kosha Grantha will help us to understand the phrase in a next level. See, if we carefully analyze the word Samanya, it gives 3 kinds of interpretation. The first one is Samanya, general. She should be given the general treatment, equal treatment like other wives. Then we take the next meaning, Sa Manya Pratipatti Purvakamiyam Dareshu Drishyatvaya. We can split the word Sa Manya Prati. So in that case, what happens? Sa Shakuntala Yam should be Manya Pratipatti Purvakam Drishya. She should be treated with respect, Manya. Even though you have a lot of wives, she should be given the due respect. Now we move on to the 3rd meaning. Sa ma anyapratipatti purvakamiyam dareshu drishyatvaya. Sa ma anyapratipatti. The kind of regard or the respect you give to other wives cannot be given to Shakuntala. She should be given some extraordinary respect, extraordinary care, extraordinary regard should be shown to Shakuntala. So the single phrase of Kalidasa can be interpreted in 3 different ways so that we get the higher levels of meaning, and we can go on enjoying the bliss of Kalidasa's poetry. This is another application of the Kosha Granthas like Amara Kosha. And particularly these Amara Koshas are unavoidable when it comes for Chitra Kavyas. Say for example in Kirata Arjuniyam, the 15th Sarga, the entire Sarga is full of Chitrabandha and a lot of words, circus with words, play with words, puns, alliteration, palindrome, anuloma, pratiloma, yamaka. In one particular verse, Bharavi, he uses only one consonant. With the help of that, he completes the entire shloka. See here in this shloka, he has used only the single consonant nakara. Nano, nanunno, nano, nana, 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 nano. Nunno, nunno, nanunneno, nane, nanunna, nunnunat. Of course, we have the takara at the end of this shloka, but that need not be treated as a dosha because it is a pure consonant. So it is accepted. So apart from that, we can see the entire shloka is composed of only one consonant, nakara. Now, how to understand this? See, I think even at the time of Bharavi, which is around some 6th century common era, people might have struggled to understand this. So definitely, without the help of Kosha Grantha, no ordinary person can understand such slokas. Of course, the meaning I have given here. A man is not a man who is wounded by a low man. Suppose somebody inferior to us attacks us and harms us, then we cannot claim ourselves as a man. Similarly, he is also not a man who wounds a low man. Similarly, from our higher position, we should never try to overhaul a person who is weaker. The wounded one is not considered to be wounded if his master is unwounded. Suppose the servant or the employer, he protects his master. Then, even though he is wounded, he need not consider himself as wounded. That was happened in the case of Jatayu. Though Jatayu was very much wounded, he took up all the wounds on behalf of Sita. In his attempts, he rescued Sita. So he didn't consider himself as wounded at all. That is why when he was explaining about the event, he told Ravana came, abducted Sita, everything, but he didn't even utter a single word about how I was attacked by Ravana. So that is the meaning of the third. Then, and he who wounds a man who is already wounded is not a man. So it doesn't need any explanation. Very simple one. When the meaning is explained, it appears simple, but nano, nanunno. So here the main noun is na. Na means man. Okay. And to know such words, because these words are not regularly used in our day-to-day expressions. So they are all called dictionary words or words rarely used, right? So here, to understand such shlokas, definitely we need the help of Amara Koshas. Not only Amara Koshas, any Kosha for that matter. And these Koshas also help us to remove misinterpretation or wrongly edited shlokas. Sometimes what will happen, the ancient texts, they are written in palm leaves. So there will be a lot of lacunae. Sometimes some leaves would have been torn or missing, or some insects will eat upon the leaves, and while eating, they will create a new mark that will appear as a letter. See, for example, Karo Me will be written on a leaf, but the worm or the insect will move on the letter, and Me will appear like me. So Karo Me will become Karo Me. Karo me means my hand. Karo me, karaha me, mama karaha, my hand. But because of the contribution of this insect, the reader will understand it to be karomi, a verb. So that is lot of such things will happen in the manuscript. So while editing the manuscript, we have to take lot of what do you call precautions. So here one such example is this. In the Lakshmi Ashtotra Shloka, the shloka goes like Namami Kamalam Kantam. The next phrase in some of the popular edition says Kamam Kamakshim Krodasambhavam, like that. When we recite this Kamakshim Krodasambhavam, we will not bother much. But when the very same shloka is different in the presented in the form of Ashtotra Shatanamavali, it is mentioned as Kamakshye Namaha, Krodasambhavayai Namaha. Now we will be surprised why Mahalakshmi should be called as Kamakshi. Okay, some general meaning we can apply to Mahalakshmi also. Let Mahalakshmi can also become Kamakshi. Okay. Then what is the next noun? Krodasambhavayai Namaha. So the next one says Krodasambhava. Why she should be Krodasambhava? Mahalakshmi is an epitome of Daya, Karunya, Sneha, right? But why she should be mentioned as Krodasambhavam? Because when the editor, he has seen the particular shloka in the palm leaf, it is written as Kamam Kshi Rodasambhavam. There was some unnecessary pause between these two phrases. So he understood Kamam Kshi. When he read that, he thought that the Anuswara is wrongly placed. Kamam Kshi, that is wrong. It should be Kamakshim. So he made first wrong correction. Thinking it to be a correction, he made the first mistake. He wrote Kamakshi Rodasambhavam. Then the next person comes, he takes copy from that. When the second time copy is taken, he reads Kamakshi. Then Rodasambhavam. Why it is Rodasambhava? It should, there is no word like Rodasambhava, so it must be Krodasambhava. So he corrects it, another mistakes. He creates another mistake, Kamakshi Krodasambhava. This is a mistake at second time. Now third time this is being taken another copy. Now the third Lipikaraka, their copyist, he comes and reads Kamakshim. He looks at the Krodasambhava and observes the Dakara is wrong there, because if at all it is Krodasambhava, it should be Krodasambhava, right? So he makes the third mistake, Krodasambhava. But actually the original text says Kamam Kshirodasambhavam. How we can understand this Mahalakshmi is Kshirodasambhava? That we can understand only with the help of koshas like Amarakosha. If we refer to Amarakosha, it will give us a very easy clue, very clear clue that, see here, Amarakosha states the various synonyms of Mahalakshmi like Indira, Lokamata, Ma, Kshirodatanaya, Rama, Kshirodatanaya, Kshirodasambhavam. The very same word is appearing in the shloka. So this is how Amarakosha helps us in understanding the Sanskrit literature in many ways. Of course, I have created a lot of slides. Some more slides are there which I wanted to talk about. But anyhow, looking at the time frame now, let me stop here. I will maybe if some more interesting slides are there, I will cover it up. Otherwise, I can open the floor for some interaction like question and answers. So yeah, after this I got this Abhidhana Ratnamala, on which I made a research, a critical study. Yeah, okay. In next 5 minutes I will wind it up, sir. So this Abhidhana Ratnamala is written by Halayudha. He belonged to the 10th century Common Era, and in this dictionary there are around 900 slokas only. So in that sense, it is a concise kosha. Unlike Amarakosha, it is very, very small. And another unique, striking feature of this Abhidhana Ratnamala is Amarakosha is full of Anushtup shloka only. Whereas in Abhidhana Ratnamala, we have got shlokas of different meters. Different meters like Shardula Vikreditam, Mandakranta, Bhujanga Prayata, Arya, Geeti, like a lot of. So the whole dictionary looks colorful so that we get some variety also. And here, Halayudha deals with the 5 kandas. Unlike Amarakosha, where we have only 3 kandas, here he deals with the 5 kandas like Swarga Kanda, Bhumi Kanda, Patala Kanda, Samanya Kanda, and Anekartha Kanda. In Amarakosha, we have Nanartha Kanda. The very same thing is dealt with in different terminology called Anekartha Kanda, but the purpose is the same. And if you observe the style and the approach of Halayudha, it is very simple and straight. For example, when he is glossing the synonyms of Brahma, he will say Chaturmukha, all these things. Then he will say Padma Bhuhu. Based on this Padma Bhuhu, we can create some other words like Kamala Bhuhu, because Kamala is a synonym for Padma. Okay. So based on that Padma Bhuhu, we can coin the another word Kamala Bhuhu for Brahma. Similarly, Abjanma. Okay. Abjanma is another word. So unlike Amarakosha, he will not give all the synonyms. He will give only some clues. Based on that clue, the reader has to coin, not the reader, the poet or the scholar. He has to coin some more words on the principle of the previous example. So in this way, it gives an opportunity for the creativity of the poet and the scholar. And one more unique feature of this Abhidhana Ratnamala is the gender. The topic of gender is very clearly in easy manner it is established. Unlike in Amarakosha, where he will mention iti klebe, striyam, pumsi, like that every now and then Amara will mention about the gender by word. Whereas here, by the special way of arrangement of the synonyms itself, Halayudha gives the clue about the gender of the particular word. Say, for example, you take the one shloka from Swarga Varga, where we have synonyms for heaven. Swaswargasurasadma tridashavasas trivishtapam tridivam dyaur gauramartya bhuvanam nakasya durdalokascha. So in this shloka, if you observe Swaha, Swargaha, Tridashavasaha, Dyauhu, Gauhu, all these words, Nakaha, they are all in Pullinga. Whereas the words like Surasadma, Trivishtapam, Tridivam, they are in Napumsakalinga. So even without using the words like Iti Klebe or Sriyam or Pumsi, Halayudha is easily conveying the gender of each and every word by its ending and by a special way of arrangement. That is another unique feature. Similarly, like Amarakosha and Abhidhana Ratnamala, Abhidhana Chintamani of Hemachandra, that is also another popular lexicon available in Sanskrit literature. And I will highlight one particular thing where Abhidhana Chintamani helps us to look into the finer meaning, how exact meaning or intricate meaning is also observed by these lexicographers. Say, for example, this Dukula is a popular word in Sanskrit literature. If you take up any dictionary, the word will be a silken garment, silken cloth. That's the general meaning given for Dukula. Whereas this Dukula is referred to by different author in different contexts. Kautilya says there are 3 varieties of Dukula manufactured in Bengal, Poundra Desha, Savarna Kudya. And he also mentions about the color. The Bengal cloth will be white, Poundra Desha will be somewhat yellowish, and Savarna Kudya will be reddish. Bana refers to Amrita Phena Davale Dukule Vasanam. Similarly, Paridhaya Raja Hamsa Mituna Lakshmani Sadrishe Dukule. The first reference is from Kadambari, second one is from Harsha Charita. And Kalidasa also used this word, Amukta Bharanasragvi Hamsa Chinna Dukulavan. So this Dukula thing is not a new one. It is widely used, widely known to all. But if you refer to Amarasimha, in Amarakosha, it is a Kshaumam Dukulam Syat. So he treats Kshauma and Dukula as synonyms. Even Halayudha is also the same opinion that Dukulam Kshauma Mishyate. But in practicality, it is not correct because there is a fine difference between Dukula and Kshauma. Okay. So because the problem occurs where this is not correct according to Kautilya, because in Arthashastra he has treated both Dukula and Kshauma as two different fabrics. So if we go by Amara and Halaida, this problem is not settled. And even Bana also clearly mentions that the Kshauma will be very white in color. Okay. And whereas this Dukula will be very soft. So there seems to be some difference between this Dukula and Kshauma. So if we refer to Abhidhana Chintamani, there he clearly says that Atasi is a kind of linseed. Okay, Atasi is called Kshuma. Okay, even Halaida also records it. Atasi, Syat, Uma, Kshuma. Atasi has two more synonyms like Uma and Kshuma. So there Hemachandra clearly explains that Kshuma is equal to Atasi. So Kshumayaha vikaraha Kshaumam. So the product got from Kshuma is called Kshauma. So from the barks of the tree, variety of cloth is made. That is called Kshauma. Duhyate Kshumayaha akrishyate dukulam. Then from the fabrics of this Kshauma, fine yarns, fine threads are made, and out of the thread, Dukula is weaved. So finally, though Kshuma and Atasi, they are product of the same. Okay, so they are the cloth made up of Kshuma is of the same. They are come from the same source, but there is a difference. So Kshuma and Dukula both are made up of the same material. The only difference between them, the finest difference is the thicker one is called Kshauma and the thinner one is called Dukula. So how to know about this intricate meaning? Even in this variety also, the Kosha Grantha helps us very much in understanding all these things. So I stop my presentation here. So I thank you all once again for giving me this wonderful opportunity to share my research findings with you. And if you have any remarks, any comments, feedbacks, or any questions, you can ask.
Hello, can I ask a small question? This is Gopalakrishnan.
Yeah, please.
You said for Brahma, some 2 or 3 words you gave. I have a doubt on one of them. You said Abjanma. Abjanma. Is it Abjanma or Abjajanma? Because the first portion should be Kamala.
Your voice was breaking, so can you repeat the question again? I could not.
Yeah, I will repeat that. You gave synonyms for Brahma, Padma Bhuhu, etc. And then you gave a word Abjanma. So I thought it should be Abjajanma to match with the Kamala Bhu. The first portion should mean...
it is Abja Janma only.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it is Abja Janma only. It's a typo.
Right. Okay.
There is a typo. Not Abjanma, Abja Janma.
Okay. And another doubt is, you said Daraha for wife. And it's a plural. It's a plural. Correct. Masculine.
Correct.
But does it indicate one wife or many wives in principle, literally? I'm not hearing. Hello?
I think my connection is not stable. Can you repeat the question? Daraha, plural.
Daraha is masculine plural representing wife.
So again, I have a problem.
Okay. You can't hear me?
Sir.
Hello?
Yes, sir. Please go ahead.
Okay. Daraha is a word indicating meaning wife. It's a masculine plural. You mentioned it. You are able to hear me?
I think I have some connectivity issues.
Okay.
Sir, may
type in the question in chat. Am I audible? Are you able to listen to my voice?
You are audible. You are quite audible.
I guess he is not able to hear us, sir. He is able to speak, but he is not able to hear us.
Yes.
Sambat Kumar, okay. Sir. Sambat Kumar. Hello. So here the problem. We are all right. We are here. It is all quite okay. Dr. Sampath Kumar, please come on the screen.
I have some connectivity issues. That's why.
Oh,
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, you mentioned that Daraha is a masculine plural word indicating wife. Does it indicate a single wife or many wives literally?
Very interesting question. Daraha, though it is in Bahuvachanam, it refers to only one wife only. In
but-
Sanskrit, we have such forms like apaha. So apaha
Yeah.
is also in Bahuvachanam. Again,
Yes.
it is uncountable in the case of
Yeah.
water, but here
Yes.
Daraha is referring to only one.
Okay. No, that is all right. That is what I was also thinking. But in another reference, you gave Dareshu. So there, you
Dareshu
mentioned that it is many
Dushyatmaya.
wives.
There, only with the help of context, we have to interpret the words. In the case of Himavan mentioning Ami Daraha, it refers only to Manaka. Whereas when Kanva Maharshi says Dareshu, he refers to all the wives in the harem. So there, it applies to the plurality. Very good observation.
Okay.
Very interesting observation you have made.
Thank you. Thanks.
You got a keen eyes.
Thank you.